What other unhinged things have you seen or heard of that these helicopter moms do? Story 1. You haven't seen anything until you've seen helicopter hockey parents. They don't only hover over their kids, they encourage horrible sportsmanship. A few years ago when my goalie brother was playing squirt AA, so about age 9 to 10, the opposing team equipped themselves with the age-old strategy of run the goalie. The coaches were in on this. The parents cheered bloodthirstily whenever these little demons jackets rammed into my brother. They kept this up more than they attempted to score. My brother had had enough. Poor kid snapped and walloped the next boy who skidded into his net area, which was totally justifiable by that point. This redneck-looking woman and her husband immediately got up, started screeching about their "poor precious Joey" and "get that goalie out of there, ref." Eventually, their whole cheering system was on their feet and yelling out obscene stuff about taking my brother out. To 10-year-olds. They all got escorted out by security. You cannot make this stuff up. When a kid they don't know gets assaulted, they don't bat a single eye. But when their kid is on the receiving end, suddenly it's something horrible. I love reasonable parents. Story 2. I'm not allowed on the internet. At all. I'm in high school. That's obviously not happening. I mostly get internet using gaming devices, as they all seem to have parental controls loopholes. As you can guess, typing is really sad. I'm also not allowed to listen to music, watch anime or read manga, wear too much gray or black, hang out with the nerds, read webcomics, particularly Homestruck, go to somebody's house unless there are others there. Doesn't help that my older sister is a mini helicopter mom. Can't wait for college, and I'll be free from this helicopter bullshit. I break a lot of these rules in private, and I'm in all GT classes with A's and B's. I also finished an AP course recently. Breaking these rules mostly definitely does not hinder my potential. Story 3. I was not allowed to walk to school by myself even though it was literally 1 block away from my house because my mom said I would get kidnapped. I was in junior high and was not allowed to go to friends' houses because my parents did not trust other parents. This extended all the way through high school until I started acting out and they sent me to a lockdown mental health treatment facility. My childhood was painfully lonely, to say the least. Yeah, another one of those villain origin stories. Story 4. In high school, I was friends with this girl we'll call Judy. Judy's mom was really strict and overprotective, and she could never go anywhere with us. And when she did, she'd inevitably end up grounded. She could never hang out, and she wasn't allowed to have friends over very often. Once when I was at her house, she got grounded for yelling at the dog. This led to a rebellion where Judy just stopped doing anything her mom told her. She started drinking heavily whenever she could, and she also smoked grass and did whatever substances people had. We always had to babysit her if she came out with us. This went on for a few months and she met this guy, we'll call him Tom. He was about 25 and the kind of dude that's every parent's worst fear. Judy came from a good upper middle class family. Her dad was a dentist, that sort of thing. Tom was a 25-year-old burnout, and he was on house arrest when Judy met him. It was love at first sight for her, even though we all tried to talk her out of it. She started hanging out at Tom's house anytime she could. She'd skip school to go over there, sneak out of the house at night, that sort of thing. Well, it's no surprise what happened next. Judy got pregnant. She was 8 months along at her high school graduation and married Tom and had the baby shortly thereafter. Moral of the story? Don't be a ridiculously strict parent, because your child will rebel and bad things will happen. P.S. The same exact thing happened to Judy's sister when they got older. Sad stuff. Story 5. I worked in a daycare for 4 years and only had one crazy parent, thankfully. At the end of the day, when most kids have gone home, we would combine the remaining kids of varying age into one class. This time we happened to be in the toddler room because we had a few young ones left. A boy of about 4 or 5 was laying on the foam climber of the toddlers. It was maybe 2 feet from the ground at the top of this thing. The kid rolled off and landed in the carpet. He bumped his tooth against his lip. I looked at it, noted there wasn't even a red mark, and he carried on playing. We were required to write accident reports too, and I always wrote them up for the tiniest bumps and bruises just in case. This was so minor I used what I thought to be my better judgment and decided against it. Big freaking mistake. The next day I get a phone call from his mom just ripping into me. She was furious that her kid had been injured and had tried to hide it. The only problem was that she said her kid had a puffy red eye. I apologized to her for not writing the accident report, but explained that the kid didn't even come close to hitting his eye, and that he hit his tooth without any kind of injury. She said that when she asked him about his eye, he said he got it when he fell at school. She didn't give it a second thought and immediately went to blame whoever she could. The next day, the kid wasn't at school. Why? Because he had pink eye. I didn't get any kind of apology either.
Hey, also, if you didn't know yet, me and a couple of my friends just launched Rufus Rugs. Premium, custom, hand-tufted rugs. Maybe you're just a fan of Naruto and want to show it off. Or maybe you just love Pokemon and want buzz toys on display for everyone. Either way, we can make almost anything. So hit the first link in the description to learn more.
Story 6. I went from 4th to 12th grade being homeschooled. Around the 6th grade area, my mom thought it was a good idea for my sister, also homeschooled, and I go to some sort of homeschool event in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Very conservative Christian area, also where the second KKK was formed, TYL. What the hell? It was a day of sitting around the house and there was some cool stuff at Stone Mountain. So we went, and it was probably one of the strangest experiences of my life. All the kids had this sort of glazed over look in their faces. I quickly found out why. Most of the kids I talked to were on some sort of ADHD medication. That was the saddest part looking back on it. While the few unlucky unmedicated ones of us were off at the playground, most of these kids just sat around looking at the ground with their moms immediately beside them. But anyway, back on track with the story. Eventually found another kid who played soccer, and he seemed pretty normal, or so I thought. So we spent some time kicking the ball around. Both of us seemed pretty content and wasting time until it was time to go. Then his mother came along. "Cooper, Milkies." His face went bright red and I was completely perplexed. What the hell are Milkies? His mother probably strolled up in the exact same outfit as the kid, glared at me, and then produced a bottle, as in a formula bottle, from the back of her pants and pulled out this bottle. She then proceeded to say, "Nice warm Milkies for my little boy." At which point I probably turned around, found my mom and sister, and straight up told them if we weren't leaving I would just wait by the car. Apparently they had seen some weird stuff too and agreed to leave. We then went to Popeyes and ate chicken while telling stories of these strange people. I was terrified. I thought this was going somewhere completely different. I'm so grateful things didn't go there. Story 7. My dad figured out exactly how long it took to walk home from school, as in literally walking it himself, and gave me exactly that long to get home every day. If I was more than 5 minutes late, I got a beating for screwing around. Then they got mad that I had no friends. And after a protracted argument and fight, I got an extra 15 minutes to make friends after school. That winter I got in a snowball fight and was having fun, and didn't realize it'd gone a little too long. So dear old dad drove to my school and started wandering around, bellowing my name until he found me. That was a blast. I believe this is the year after he stood in front of my entire class and told them to start being nice to me. I'm so glad I changed schools every year. Jeez, sounds like a really tough childhood. Seems to me like they came out of it okay though. Story 8. I work the score clock for hockey games where I live, as well as play, and it happens all the time. To me, the worst parents are the ones that bring air horns and other noisemakers. I mean, it's okay to cheer on your kid, but when you're making so much noise that the players and officials get distracted, it's too much. Also once, my team absolutely kicked the opposite team's butt, like I'm talking 10-1 or something like that. So after the game, a player in the opposing team kicks and breaks a window with a skate. My teammates and I were talking about this on our way out, like anyone would. One of the said teammates calls the kid a ghetto child, and his redneck mom must have heard and they went ballistic. I'm talking about every word in the dictionary. Once they stopped and let us go, my teammate leaned in and said, "Told you." The rest of us burst out laughing. Who even feels the need to bring air horns to a youth hockey game? You're begging for people to be annoyed by your existence. Story 9. I'm a preschool teacher for ages 3 to 4 years old. One day, one of my girls, Abby, is playing with Becky's security blanket during free time. Becky wants her blanket back, so she asks Abby to get off. Abby refuses, so Becky pulls the blanket from under her and Abby cries. I tell Abby that she needs to listen to what Becky is saying and respect her friend's belongings. I also tell Becky the next time, instead of pulling the blanket from under Abby, she should just come tell a teacher. Maybe 5 minutes later, while I'm passing out snacks, Abby flips into a crazy rage and runs towards Becky, tackles her, and takes a huge bite out of her shoe. Plastic literally came off. I pull Abby off and try as calmly as I can to ask her why the hell she attacked Becky. Basically, it was revenge for getting her in trouble and taking the blanket away from her. Now here's the mother part. I read an incident report telling both parents what happened, and of course, I put Abby in the thinking chair for such an outrageous attack and call her mom, leaving a message and whatnot. But the next day, Abby's mom comes in and finds the child that got bitten, Becky, and tells her that if she hadn't yanked the blanket out from under Abby, maybe she wouldn't have attacked you. Of course, I asked the parent to leave immediately and to not speak to the children, that Abby was the one who attacked out of spite, that her child's reaction was not an appropriate one that can be excused in my classroom. The mom got so mad at me for defending Becky, a 3-year-old, that she reported me to my supervisor for being unprofessional. I still have my job, but mom withdrew her child. But seriously? Story 10. I made a really great friend in high school. He and I were as thick as thieves. Early on in the friendship, my parents took us to a movie. I don't remember the movie, but the start of it got delayed by technical difficulties by about 20 minutes. My parents called from their cell to let my friend's mother know, but only got the voicemail. Thinking that would suffice, we all proceeded to have a good time. Fast forward to the end of the movie. My mom turns her cell phone on and discovers her voicemail box is suddenly full. 20, I believe, was her limit. All of them were my friend's mother pleading for us to return her son, and she would pay any amount we demanded, that if we called back soon she wouldn't go to the police. She literally had thought we kidnapped him. Suffice to say, when we got him home only 20 minutes later than planned, the conversation was rather awkward. Another 20 minutes and they would have started a foundation for kidnapped children, in honor of their obviously now deceased son. If you would like to donate to their cause of overly worrying about their kids, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 11. I had a friend in high school whose parents were seriously weird people. His mother never got her driver's license and didn't know how to write. She could read enough to follow a recipe book, and that was it. As you can imagine, all she could do all day was clean the house and cook food. His dad at least had a decent job. It wasn't too bright either. They were extremely overprotective and bought him thousands of dollars worth of video games to give him incentive to not go anywhere. As an example, every quarter when he bought home his report card, if he wasn't failing the grade, he could fail a class, just not be failing enough classes that he was in danger of repeating a grade. He would get something like 8 new games. So I'm friends with this kid as well as his cousin, who's also our age, and my mom is good friends with his cousin's mom. So we all go to an amusement park one day, including my friend, his cousin, and her mom. And my mom, myself, and my sister, who's only a year younger than us and also friends with a cousin. It's only 40 minutes away or so, and we plan to be there until about 3 p.m. Well, at 3:05, we ran into none other than my friend's dad. He got worried, drove to the park and paid for parking and admission just to come and check on his son. He had expected we would call to let him know his kid was okay, that we were getting ready to go. When he got no such call, he assumed the worst. What the worst is, I have no idea. Story 12. I have a cousin who lives in northern Michigan where young hockey is a very big deal. My cousin was voted president of the league one year, and his first priority was to get the parents to only encourage good sportsmanship and friendly competition. He sent out over a dozen letters before the season even started to the parents of players throughout the leagues, stating that any parent seen shouting profanity, encouraging violence or cheating, etc., would be permanently banned from all future games. The first round of the season starts, and it was a disaster. Parents were worse than usual, and several people were arrested at different games for fighting in the stands. Needless to say, the letters hadn't worked. So my cousin decided to hold a meeting for players and coaches, only to discuss the problem. After having the police forcibly vacate a few parents who didn't agree with a players and coaches only aspect of the meeting, he asked the players what they wanted to do. Most of the players actually said they didn't want their parents to come to the games. Most of them weren't trying to go pro. They just enjoyed playing hockey and their parents were ruining it for them. So they took a vote at the meeting and my cousin sent out one last letter that simply said, parents, step-parents, foster parents, legal guardians, etc. were no longer allowed at official league games. If a parent was spotted, that team would forfeit the game. If they came a second time, that team forfeit the season. My cousin got some death threats, but nothing ever came of it. Another hockey-related story. I knew hockey could get violent, but who knew hockey parents could be worse? Story 13. We decided to teach the Hunger Games in English last year. I had a few parents raise concerns because they had heard a few rumors, but it was nothing a quick conference and a little reassuring couldn't fix, until Mrs. Bickerstaff happened. Now, Mrs. Bickerstaff had an inflated sense of self-importance to begin with, a housewife who, with complete seriousness, signs her emails. Mrs. Nolanda Charlene Bickerstaff Esquire. Type of self-important. She not only pitched the brattiest of brat fits about not allowing her son to read it, we offered an alternative to kids whose parents put their foot down and said no, but embarked on a 6-month campaign to get the school shut down unless we pulled the book from the curriculum for everyone. She disenrolled her son, threatened to sue us for the cost of sending him to an expensive private school, and called every parent in the school to try to get them to do the same. When she didn't have any success with that, she went to the local news and told them what was going on. What resulted was a flattering news story that reported her high test scores and innovative approach to learning. We're a charter school. I should mention that she didn't read the book. That was so ironic. Clearly someone that stupid can even read to begin with. Story 14. Being overbearing can have some serious effects on a kid. I popped out first. My dad wanted his son and made me his little tomboy. Camping, fishing, rafting, eating dirt, playing in mud, falling and getting cuts and scrapes. That was my childhood. I never got along with my mom because she wanted to put me in dresses and hair bows and make me act girly. When my little brother was born, my mother sunk her talons into him. She was really overprotective, never letting him get dirty, sanitizing everything he touched, teaching him to be terrified of strangers and all that. Lo and behold, I never get sick. My brother is constantly falling ill, has a phobia of homeless people, and is incredibly shy and nervous when talking to other people. Thanks, Mom. Story 15. Until I moved out at 18, I was not allowed to be anywhere unsupervised except home. No hanging out at the mall, no going to friends' houses without my parents talking to their parents to verify supervision first. Could not wear shorts, even in 100+ degree weather. Could not wear tank tops, could not swear or say pissed off or oh my god. Could not paint my nails, could not date, was not allowed to get mad at my parents, and was frequently warned that if I went by myself to get the mail, I might get harassed or kidnapped. I lived alone off campus my first year of college. I spent most of it huddled on my kitchen floor crying, absolutely terrified of everything, because they did not raise me to be capable of existing in the real world. I'm pretty okay now. I just don't trust anyone because I was raised to be paranoid. Whee! Therapy! Story 16. When I worked at a coffee shop, a mother, with the most helium-like whiny voice imaginable, came and ordered a 7-step customized drink, and threw a fit when we just asked her to repeat it. Oh no, am I the bad guy? I'm sorry, I thought you'd be able to speak English. Then she goes, in the same whiny begging voice, Can my son have a job? I handed her a job application. He already sent one in. Can you just hire him? Hey, I don't want whipped cream on that. So, can he have a job? I tell her if he sent in an application, he'll get a call when the manager looks through the stack. We had like 20 applications at any given point. So he's just going to be one in the pile? Yeah, that's not gonna work. He's a great kid, just hire him. Just to get rid of her, I read down her son's name and said I'll look into it. I hand her a drink and she leaves. My manager, who heard her screeching voice from the back room, immediately calls me over to see that kid's name. He digs through the pile of applications and immediately shreds the kid's application. His only words, "If we hire him, his mother's going to be here all the time." Honestly though, if her son has learned to deal with her in his life, he's probably very well equipped to deal with horrible customers. He may possess otherworldly patience. Story 17. My cousin has a helicopter mom, very controlling and dominant. Kate never got to think for herself, never had to learn discipline, financial or personal. She never had to. Her mom did it all for her. When Kate finally got into university and was away from her mother for the first time in her life, Kate went completely off the rails since to all extents she was an 18-year-old with the maturity of an 8-year-old. She would struggle to fill out basic paperwork and forms for class since she had no experience of it. Worst of all was that she had no experience of the opposite sex since she'd been sheltered all her life, and so she got taken advantage of frequently. What was even more stupid was that her mom, still to this day, does not see where she went wrong. She can't realize or admit that she weakened her child by removing life opportunities that strengthen a personality. Story 18. When I was student teaching, we had one of those stoplight noise alarms. If the class was quiet, it was green. If it got to X decibels, it flashed yellow. If it got to Y decibels, the light flashes red and makes a quiet whooping alarm noise. It was loud enough that a student across the room would hear it, but not so loud that you could say, hear it in the halls. It was about as loud as you might listen to some music. One day the principal walks in with a parent, who was also a nurse or something. She had a device to measure the decibel levels in the classroom, a notebook and a stack of papers. Apparently she was concerned that her daughter, who sat in the group closest to the siren, might suffer permanent hearing loss from the device. Also, it might be possible that she was becoming scared, what with the loud noise and all. It was later determined that there was no possibility for hearing loss. This was explained to us in a 10-page letter with pictures of the ear canal and references from several peer-reviewed journals. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what ridiculous zero-tolerance rules did your school have? Story 2 was crazy. See you on that video.